How's it going, you sexy beasts? My name is Drathmus, and welcome to my guide for the heroic version of Upper Blackrock Spire. This guide will cover mechanics for the 5 bosses, as well as how to obtain the Leeroy achievement to obtain the level 100 epic follower for your garrison. This is my first guide for Warlords of Draenor, and I most certainly hope it will not be my last. Please let me know if there's any information you'd like to see added to future videos or anything removed to improve the viewing experience. We'll start off with strategies to defeat each boss and wrap it up with how to obtain Leeroy Jenkins as a follower. With that out of the way, let's jump right into it. After a few rooms of trash and sentry cannons that engineers can reformat to be on your side, you'll come across Orbender Gor'ashan. As his name suggests, Gor'ashan spends his time bending metal to his will and attempting to unravel the dark iron runes left within the spires. This encounter is quite simple, but also very unforgiving to players with poor timing. Gor'ashan is primarily a spellcaster, so the tank should be using damage absorption, active mitigation to absorb the boss's Blades of Steel cast, which pretty much replaces the boss's auto attack. This cannot be spell reflected or interrupted. Shrapnel Nova is randomly cast throughout the encounter and deals damage to nearby enemies, which ignores armor. Range should be oriented along the top half of the ramp up to the boss to lessen or completely avoid this damage, and melee should attempt to move out to reduce the damage as well. Over time, the boss will empower himself with rune conduits throughout the room. This reduces his damage taken by 14% per rune conduit activated, and allows him to cast Thunder Cacophony, which deals nature damage to all group members. Deactivating an empowered rune conduit will remove a stack of his power conduit buff. When all the conduits are deactivated, the boss will stop casting Thunder Cacophony, and DPS should take it upon themselves to go ahead and deactivate these conduits, but also to be careful of the 2 lightning orbs circling the room in a clockwise pattern. These deal nature damage every 0.8 seconds and will wreck anyone caught within it. If a collision with an orb is completely unavoidable, stand on top of one of the rune conduits itself to avoid taking damage from the lightning. Once the final conduit is deactivated, a lodestone spike will emerge and deal nature damage to anyone caught within its path. The lodestone and lightning orb damage can be mitigated if it is not avoided entirely through the use of abilities like deterrence or anti-magic shell. Just keep that in mind. The group's healer will need to stay mobile to keep line of sight on the DPS as they run around to deactivate the rune conduits. The tank will need to be on their toes to mitigate the damage of Blades of Steel, and the DPS need to keep themselves alive while in the path of the lightning orbs. The second boss is Kyrak, one of the few remaining survivors of Nefarian's twisted dragon experiments, tasked to continue these said experiments on the remaining black dragonflight eggs within the spires. Kyrak has 2 adds of them, Draconid monstrosities. These have an innate cleave that need to be pointed away from any melee DPS, as well as a linear cast eruption that deals fire damage within its telegraphed area. If caught in his path, the player will be disoriented and take an additional fire damage over 3 seconds. Single target DPS these down one at a time and avoid the eruption. Kyrak himself has one key ability that needs to be erupted. It's Debilitating Fixation. This targets a player in the group, dealing shadow damage every second, but it also fixates the boss on said player. If the spell is not interrupted, the boss will typically one-shot the crap out of that person. The tank should focus primarily on Kyrak and AoE tank the 2 adds to always be on top of interrupting the fixation. Throughout the encounter, the boss will throw a salve of toxic fumes at one target, which will deal nature damage every 1.5 seconds to all nearby allies. The target of this ally should move away from other teammates, and teammates also move away from that target. Vile Blood Serum creates a puddle on the ground, dealing nature damage every 1.5 seconds. These can be completely avoided if you move right as you see the green globs floating through the air. These will always aim at the feet of every player on the ground, so it is very easy to avoid. The tank should keep an eye out on the ground real estate and move the boss accordingly to keep the melee DPS from stepping in the puddles or creating line of sight issues with your healer. The last ability to worry about is Rejuvenating Serum, which heals 8% maximum health every 3 seconds over 12 seconds. This spell cannot be interrupted, but it can and should be dispelled, or the fight will go on for much longer than necessary. Marking the halfway point of Upper Blackrock Spire is Commander Tharbek. This fight is very reminiscent of the old Rend Blackhand engagement in the original dungeon. You'll have to contend with 3 waves of adds and some little baby Rylaks to fight. These can be dealt with rather easily, with an AoE slow or stun right when they leave the gate. After the waves are dealt with, Tharbek Sky Reaver will spawn and take flight to allow the boss to mount upon it. Once the Sky Reaver has landed, be careful of his incinerating breath. This can outright murk the crap out of any players caught within it in a matter of seconds. Once the Sky Reaver reaches 50% health, Tharbek will dismount and enter the fray. Finish off the mount just to remove any additional damage from the encounter. At this point, the entire group should be spread out from one another to avoid any unnecessary damage from Iron Reaver, which Tharbek will charge to a ranged target, dealing physical damage to the target and anyone caught within its path. Throughout the fight, he will randomly throw imbued iron axes, which whirl around the room in a random pattern, dealing fire damage to anyone caught within. With everyone spread out, this should not be much of a problem, though the axes themselves are quite a nuisance with their unpredictable pathing. Tharbek's Iron Axe ability will select a random group member, including the tank, to deal physical damage and inflict a bleed for more physical damage every second and a half over 6 seconds. This is unavoidable, so the healer will just have to deal with it. There's no casting, there's no telegraph, just a straight up hit and a dot. Lastly, at 70% health, Tharbek will cast Iron Rage, which increases all damage dealt by 50%. At this point, people should probably use personal cooldowns to stay alive, if need be, as damage will be significantly increased of all the boss's abilities. At 60% health though, a blue drake named Obby will join in the fray and do some arcane breaths and melee to help burn the boss. If you're a veteran player of WoW, you'll notice this is the young blue whelp we helped back in the day, all grown up now. Ragewing the Untamed is the second to last boss and is quite an interesting one. It's a bridge boss like Kalagarn from Ulduar, but with a lot more going on in the fight. As you walk across the bridge, Ragewing will ascend to meet you eye to wing and begin the encounter. At this point, the entire group needs to stand within the middle of the bridge, but still staying slightly spread out. This is to avoid the Magma Spit, which chooses a random player at range to deal fire damage and leave a puddle of fire that you should probably move out of to avoid any excessive damage. Ragewing will cast Engulfing Flames at either side of the bridge and work her way toward the opposite side of her original position. This ability is a frontal cone of Fiery Doom that deals insane amount of fire damage and disorients any of those unfortunate enough to be hit. This needs to be avoided at all costs by pretty much running the hell away from it. Pretty simple. At 70% health, the Proto Drake will fly above the bridge and begin spawning whelps that will need to be picked up by the tank. During this phase, Firestorm will be cast randomly on players to deal fire damage on the target and nearby allies. While she is in flight, Magma Spit will continually be cast, which will severely inhibit player movement due to the fire puddles and telegraphs on the ground. The tank needs to pick up adds quickly and the DPS need a dispatch of them since the boss returns to the bridge to re-engage, typically before all the adds are dealt with. At 40% health, Ragewing will take off once more and repeat the previous phase of fire and whelps. This time, she will land on the bridge and begin to gain Burning Rage, increasing her damage dealt by 15% and will continually stack up to 4 stacks. This is pretty much the do or die phase, and cooldown should be used to quickly dispatch of the boss. People who can dispel enrage abilities should also do so to help prevent potential for massive group-wide damage, and to lend a hand for your healers. The final boss is Warlord Zaela. Yep, that's right, the Dragon Maw chick that's been nothing but a coward since Siege of Orgrimmar and running away from all of her fights and responsibilities. The initial pull of this engagement is pretty easy to contend with. Ranged DPS and healers should stay pretty spread out to deal with Rebounding Blade, which Zaela will throw at a random target, dealing physical damage, and then it will bounce to 2 nearby allies. She also targets a random player in the group and focuses on them while casting a Blade Storm, dealing a bunch of physical damage every second and a half to any players caught within its range. The most devastating mechanic the tank has to deal with is Destructive Strike, which deals a mega boatload worth of physical damage and also does a medium knockback which can potentially knock the tank off of the platform. It's happened to me plenty of times. To counter this, the tank should position the boss within the center square of the arena with their back toward the majority of the platform to have plenty of space to prevent being knocked down into the molten span. At 60% health, Zaela will retreat and mount up on a Proto Drake and fly around for 40 seconds. During this phase, Proto Drakes will land near the edges of the arena and breathe a linear path of fire which will cover up 1/3 of the boss arena. Typically, 2 patches of the arena will be covered in fire. An area cannot be covered in fire immediately after a Drake stops breathing fire on it, so the best course of action for positioning around the fire breath is to step into a previously covered area once the fire dissipates. The fire is also gone along the entire arena, so even if it looks like you are not going to take damage at the edge of the arena, you still will. It's a pain in the butt and takes a little bit of getting used to. To add on to the crazy amounts of fire, 3 Proto-Drake riders will dismount and engage in the fight. These adds yank players in with chain pull and immediately use Dragon Roar to deal AoE damage around them as well as knocking players back. This is probably the most dangerous part of the encounter, and cooldown should be used to burn these adds down within the 40-second time period where Zaela lands and re-engages the party, whether the adds die or not. Once the Proto-Drake riders have been slain, the remainder of the fight is to avoid fire, position the boss so the tank does not get knocked off of the arena, and move away from blade storms. Now that we've covered all the bosses, isn't this place known for WoW's first popular funny meme? Leeroy Jenkins. Well, he's back in the form of a level 100 epic follower. Once you killed Kyrak, the second boss, Leeroy's body will be made available to be revived and begin the gauntlet.
Where am I? I'm so tired. Wait a second. It's coming back to me. This is Blackrock Spire, and we are here to vanquish evil and get me some much-needed loot. I remember it all now. You are my pals for life. Weird. Thought there were more of you. No matter, you are the brains, the creators of the perfect plan, and I'm the one who will enact that plan with surgical accuracy. But first, I am hungry. It is like I have not eaten in 8 years. I guess I will just cook this chicken that I have in my bag while you devise our plan of attack.
You have 900 seconds or 15 minutes while Leeroy cooks up his 8-year-old chicken to clear every single enemy in the dungeon up to and including the Son of the Beast. And by every enemy, I mean every single enemy. Leeroy is a level 60 paladin with 14,000 health. He will aggro damn near everything through walls, and anything will kill him in a single hit, preventing you from getting the achievement. This gauntlet is more of a DPS race than anything else, and I would highly recommend the group have a minimum item level of 620 to be as effective as possible in clearing all the trash and bosses in time. Keep in mind that if Leeroy enters the beast room while the beast itself is still alive, the mini-boss will either instantly charge Leeroy and just kill the crap out of him, or Leeroy might walk into the fire left within the charge of its wake. Once the beast is slain, Leeroy will loot his devout shoulders to increase his healing, and will make his way to your garrison to become a new follower for your cause.
My devout shoulders. I knew they were here. My quest is complete. Now time for a little well-deserved rest and relaxation. If you need me, I will be back at your garrison.
For this event, make sure to bring flasks and food to get the best chance for completing this achievement, as one wipe might be the make or break point. I know it was for my group, though we were slightly undergeared for a rather efficient run. And there you have it, you sexy beasts, my heroic guide for Upper Blackrock Spire, as well as getting Leeroy Jenkins as a follower. This dungeon really pulls at my nostalgia strings, and it was one of my favorites damn near 10 years ago in the vanilla days. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a big ass thumbs up. If you didn't, thumbs it down and let me know what I can improve upon. Thank you guys so very much for watching, and thank you all to the very badass supporters on Patreon. I greatly appreciate your support. Got an idea for my next guide? Let me know in the comment section below, or just let me know how your day's been. I hope it's been going awesomely. Make sure to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos like these, since it's, free and all, and I will see you guys later.